Today we're going to talk about metacognition, which is very sexy. This is probably relevant whatever specialty you work in, whether it's ED or any form of medicine, acute form of medicine. I think it pays to be mindful of our thought-making processes and the limitations therein, if that makes sense. And it's quite an important topic. The guy who is the guru of this is a Canadian called Pat Cross-Carey, who trained initially as a psychologist and then became an emergency physician and was frequently involved in like M&M, adverse outcomes, and analysing. And the same patterns would come up over and over again of cases that got missed or cases that were high risk or cases where you think, you read it all out in retrospect and go, patient presents to hospital with a headache and a fever, is sent home with a viral illness and is dead the next day. What went wrong in the decision-making process? Like, surely this patient looks like they've got meningitis, but obviously the way that we think in real time in ED with limited information and frequent interruptions and only part of the story, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the patient doesn't speak English, and yada yada yada. It's actually there, but for the grace of God, we all go with every case that we don't fuck up. So the standard of care is probably to get it wrong, and when we get it right, we should kind of pat ourselves on the back. So, there's a lot you can do to minimise problems with your decision making in emergency. I guess you can't become a robot. You will still make mistakes because you're a human being. But I think there are strategies that you can use to prevent you from making common cognitive errors, because a lot of the common cognitive errors they're stereotypical and they will occur frequently, and despite your level of experience or knowledge or expertise, people will still make these kind of errors. So on the front has anyone been to the Rodin Museum in Paris? Have you been? I thought you might have been, Alana, you're Francophile. Yeah. It's got a nice cafe in the garden, yeah. And they've got Le Penseur is in the garden. They've actually got the thinker in the garden. It's worth a look next time in France. Just check it out. It's in the Varennes suburb, and it's a lovely kind of old house, and they've got all the sculptures in the garden, and you can have coffee afterwards if you're not into art. So Rodin. So we'll talk about a wee bit about that and just try and A, recognise the problem, and then B, find ways of putting the car and putting the brakes on and finding some strategies to stop making those errors over and over again, and maybe set a little bit of the context on why it happens, and particularly why ED is probably higher. It's probably high yield in ED compared to other disciplines, I think. And so there's a lot of reasons for that. So the ED, so first of all, there's a lot of, to set the scene in ED, it's busy, it's chaotic, there's frequent interruptions, there's multiple handovers of care. So it's like the Swiss cheese effect, the holes will always line up in ED for bad things to happen. People are frequently juggling multiple things at once, so you might be working up 3, 4, 5 patients at once. It might be you're working shift work, it's late at night, maybe you don't do so well with late nights, or maybe you've done a late early, or maybe your dog died, or maybe you're getting divorced, or there's a lot of other stuff that we bring into the work environment that will affect how we perform and our sort of performance. But these are the main ones, and I think it pays to just sort of, not to beat yourself up if you make a mistake and you get a diagnosis wrong, but to actually kind of contextualise your mistake in the grand scheme of things. Cross-Carey talks about the ED being a natural study, like a laboratory type for the study of human error. ED is all the perfect conditions for studying why people get things wrong. So one of the other issues in ED would be that we see such a high burden of wellness. So not every febrile child is meningitis. Very few chest pains are actually a dissection or ischemia or a PE or something nasty. They're just chest pain, But we've then got rare conditions that present in a kind of outlying manner, which can be easily missed, So it's useful to, I guess, be a little bit paranoid, a little bit vigilant. And it's very easy. It's easier said than done. But when you're seeing your 4th chest pain of the day, to make sure that you still approach it with an algorithmic approach and to be robust in your thinking and to think what's common here, what's deadly here, are there any red flags, and just use like common sense to sort of get you through it. You still get it wrong, I mean that's a given, but there are strategies you can do. Even just being aware of your thinking. I found this out when I was doing night shift as a registrar in charge. If somebody came to ask me advice about a patient, you would just hear noise. Sometimes like your resident presents something, you'd be kind of tired and distracted, and you'd have to sort of sit down and go, okay, so I'm going to go and consult and review a 47-year-old guy who's got chest pain, who's got risk factors, and his ECG shows this. And then I'd have to systematically say to myself, what am I going to look for in this patient? Rather than focusing in on the ECG normal, which could easily lead you down a path of saying, you can go home when it's a dissection, because an ECG is not useful for that. To try and keep the diagnostic differential always open at all times. Like, it's fair enough to close in on a couple of conditions and say, right, number one diagnosis in this patient is X. Might be Y, could be Z, but I'm going to keep them open. There are lots of tricks along the way whereby you can be falsely reassured by the results of investigation. And you go, the white cell count's normal, thank God, so it's not an ischemic gut or whatever, like, just to still think, well, my original differential is these three conditions, I have to entertain them all the way along, despite what conflicting evidence I'll get. So my normal CRP or my normal white cell count is not going to sway me from thinking, this guy's got something wrong with his belly, needs a scan, needs a surgical opinion, needs an operation. So, and a kind of algorithmic approach. So this is just, I've showed most of the people this, but when you're sending people home from ED, I guess it pays to keep the diagnostic differential broad. That when you send somebody home, rather than saying you've got gastritis, for example, one of my least favourite words, just say you've got abdominal pain according to radiology. And then you can, when you send the patient home, you can send them home with caveats. And this is this sheet by Ainsley. Who's worked with Ainsley? Yeah. Ainsley's really good. She's got a chest pain sheet and an abdominal pain sheet, which basically says to the patient, you have been in an emergency department with abdominal pain, you have had a series of tests which are normal, you are safe to go home. It does not mean that the cause of your abdominal pain is entirely benign, it just means that you've been risk stratified enough to go home and have further investigation. So rather than closing the diagnosis with gastritis or costochondritis or any of those other itises that shouldn't be used, I think it's best to tell patients, I know what's going on with your chest pain, we haven't found evidence of a heart attack or an infection, but you might have to do some more tests. Because I think if you close the diagnosis, then people will sometimes stop the process of looking into what's going on. So use these when you discharge people home. It's a big deal in the US, obviously, because people get sued, but it's a big deal everywhere. And the preventable part of this is the cognitive error, is just being aware of it. You're still possibly going to make the errors, but if you just know what are high-risk situations, what are high-risk patients, what's high risk for me in terms of temporal factors, like am I really dodgy at 5 o'clock in the morning after working all night? We all are, so don't picking up complex stuff at the end of your shift. That's why I say, if you finish the EOU shift, just go and either go home or see an ankle sprain in fast track, because by definition at the end of your shift, you're just not cutting the mustard. You start off the day on cortex, then you get to midbrain, and then after lunch you're kind of spinal cord, so you can just two-stage commands. So being aware of where you're at in your shift, tough stuff is not easy. It's best done at the beginning part of your shift. So embarking on some complex, non-English speaking, complex of symptoms and syndromes in someone at the end of your shift, you're going to do a shit job of it and hand over to somebody else, and they're going to be resentful towards you. You're going to feel unhappy, and nobody's happy. So, be mindful of that. So there's two types of thinking that are described by Cross-Kennedy. There's type 1 and type 2. Are you familiar with these patterns of thinking? So type 1 is rapid fire, almost like kind of shooting from the hip. Just like somebody shows an ECG, you go STEMI, not STEMI, normal, abnormal. So quick, rapid fire decisions, which we all use at times, and which is actually quite useful. Like in some roles, using type 1 thinking is quite useful. But I guess it pays to be mindful of when you have to exit from that particular type of thinking, and when you have to actually be a bit more analytical as well. The flaws with type 1 thinking are, the pros of it would be it's readily accessible. You pull it out from your gestalt or from your gut or from wherever, and you can make rapid decisions with limited information based on maybe pattern recognition. The flip side of it, or the downside of it, would be that it's subject to emotional valence, which means that if you don't like a patient and you make you angry, you're going to make a rapid fire decision that's probably you're a prick, rather than you're a slightly objectionable person who still has a diagnosis I have to find. So type 1 thinking, although it's rapid fire and can be accessed quickly, will lead you into problems when it's something outside the box, or when it's a rare presentation, or when you don't like the patient, or if you are feeling a bit tired, a bit run down. You sometimes won't think as clearly if you just follow that kind of instinctual pattern. So I used Roscoe to symbolise that, because it's quite hard, it's kind of abstract. Type 1 thinking is sort of like, I don't think it's this or that. It's not really logical or very methodical or organised, it's just, I reckon. The other type of thinking is, or this is a German expression for it called Augenblick, which is basically blink of an eye, I think, is good German. So some diagnoses you can make in the blink of an eye. So what's that, David?
The Volbeat granular.
Yeah, what colour is it?
It's dark, so it's got light in it.
Yeah, you would take from. What's you can't see the glue keys. What's that there?
What is that? Occipital.
It's the teardrop sign. So it's a there's a fracture in the floor of the orbit with herniation of fat and muscle. That's a STEMI.
Like a bit of the brain.
That's a STEMI. That's clear. That's visual recognition immediately. And then this one hasn't intuited well, but you never see it. It's Koplik spots. I've never seen Koplik spots. But these are diagnoses that you make immediately. Like, remember a couple of weeks ago we had the guy with shingles, ophthalmicus, herpes ophthalmicus. You look at it and you go, that's what that is. So that will get you through a lot of common things, but it will get you into trouble when the things are less common or atypical variants. So type 2 thinking is much more methodical, analytical. So type 2 is when, if someone, like if Carl come up to me to say, I've got this old guy with abdominal pain, and you go, okay, right, so this is an elderly gentleman with a history of bowel cancer who's got a current haematological malignancy, who has undifferentiated abdominal pain localising predominantly to the right side of his abdomen. So then I'm slipping into more of a type 2 pattern of going, okay, so what can this be? Well, in this age group, cancer, obstruction, he's had previous bowel surgery, some kind of internal hernia, catastrophic intra-abdominal sepsis, diverticular abscess. And so you actually will paint and present the patient in a much more fleshed out manner, and you'll stop to think, well, could it be an ischemic gut? We better get a lactate, we'll check his ECG. So when somebody consults me, by definition, I'll go into type 2 thinking. If I'm seeing a patient on my own, I might use type 1. Does that make sense? Because by definition, if somebody's asked me for advice, they're a bit unsure themselves. Maybe they know that something's not quite right, but they haven't quite clinched the diagnosis. So when I'm asked to give an opinion as a consultant, I'll be very conservative, but I'll also be very type 2 in my thinking. So I'll strip away all make the nurses think he's a drug seeker, and he's carrying on, and he's Mediterranean, and oh God, these bloody Maltese people, like that just gets completely shut out, and you go in and you see it for what it is. And it's easier once you write it down or say it out loud, like 75-year-old patient with abdominal pain, with significant past history, including surgical history, active malignancy. Then it's easy, man. You're going to scan the guy and you know something's wrong. But you could actually be swayed from that if you went in and maybe you didn't go on with them. Maybe the guy was a bit grumpy, or maybe you were at the end of your shift, or a lot of reasons might make you just go, it's probably constipation, let's just put him in EOU and give him some laxatives. That happens a lot, If you don't know what the diagnosis is, rather than saying I don't know and asking for help, a lot of people will falsely label or attribute a condition. So if you don't know the cause of abdominal pain, the commonest thing people do is say it's constipation. Now, constipation doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. It's like gastritis. It's not like, as a cause of abdominal pain. It's non-existent. It might be the diagnosis after we've scanned the belly, but it's just a really red flag for significant pathologies in emergency. Like if you ever see somebody's been sent home with constipation, it's controversial. So type 2 is good. It's a lot more. It takes time to do type 2 though. So, like if you've got to see 5 patients in a row really quickly, and you're on your own and you don't have any backup, you might not have the time to do this, but cognitively you can always do it. You can always step outside of your immediate reaction to say, hang on a minute, am I happy with the diagnosis here? So I used Escher for that, because that's a lot more kind of geometrical and ordered and stuff. This is, I'll send you on a link to, there's a talk from Pat Cross-Carey, who basically does this talk much better, on YouTube, talking about the cognitive errors, and this is how they kind of frame the two different types of thinking. So it's almost like if your brain's a computer, you toggle between these two operating systems, type 1 and type 2, and you can, sometimes you might use one or the other or both, or you might flip between them in the same case. But see how this is like the things that factor into type 1, ambient conditions, task difficulty, task ambiguity, affective state. That's like us all the time, that's our permanent state in ED. They're always going to be factoring into your thinking, so you might as well divorce that from the algorithm, type 1 almost, like you shouldn't use it, it's very high risk, especially, maybe it's okay possibly in people with a lot of experience, but if you're on the more inexperienced side of things, it's probably a very high risk strategy to use, but type 2 is just, it's a lot more involved and there's a lot more time required for it, and like this experience, intellectual ability, training, education. Like I've been to so many M&M meetings over the years where people have been diagnosed with constipation or gastritis, then had some kind of catastrophic outcome, that I know when somebody comes up and says, I've got this guy, I think he's got gastritis already, I'm like, okay, like that only can come with experience and being exposed to cases that go wrong, and also by me diagnosing somebody with constipation, or gastritis or whatever. So it's relevant to think about that and to be aware of it. And you guys are kind of in the lucky sense most of the time, I suppose, and that you'll usually have someone to bounce your ideas off. And it's probably one of the best parts of medicine, is presenting and learning from someone, or somebody pointing out, have you thought about syphilitis, or have you thought about ischemic gut? And you go, what's that? Like, that's how you learn things, man. So when you're presenting cases at junior level, that's gold, because once the hard part comes when you don't get to present anymore, like you get to be like a most experienced person, like a registrar or even a consultant, like we will still have consultations with other this guy, what do you think? Like you still use peer advice to sort of help you with working in difficult cases, So type 1 and type 2. I like this. So you can get it right most of the time with type 1. The vast majority of chest pains, serial tropes, EOU, home. If you did that to everyone that came to hospital with chest pain, you probably would have an adverse outcome rate of maybe 5% or 10%. It wouldn't be huge. You'd probably most things can be dealt with serial troponin, EOU, But I guess it's just knowing that you're playing a little bit fast and loose if you just have that general algorithmic approach to things, and you don't have strategies for thinking outside of a kind of stereotype response. So they talk about heuristics or shortcuts, so like cognitive ways of trying to frame the question you have. And I suppose the best example of that would be red flags is probably the best heuristic. So what are the red flags for back pain?
Incontinence.
Yep. Any others? Cancer, incontinence, cancer,
IVD.
IVDU, it's like fever. So we all know that stuff, like red flag, and they're useful for a reason, Shotgun is another approach, which is basically just investigate everyone, which is kind of not very sustainable for the healthcare system, because we have to draw the line. Not everyone can have a CT audiogram, So that's kind of the more gen med approach, that they just get a pathology slip and they just is smoking off the pen, man, because they're just anti-uncles, anti-anchors, anti-DNA, SNA. So I don't know, that's particularly, we don't think...
Probably because they've been left with all the undifferentiated patients.
But that's the truth, they have a selection bias. They get people who can't send home. So they go, could this be an unusual presentation of vasculitis? I think so. So I can sort of see where they're coming from. If you inherit, it's like handover, like you guys probably aren't involved in handover as much, but if you inherit uncertainty from someone on a handover, then that's a kind of red flag in itself. When the EOU in the morning, there's 16 people who don't have a diagnosis. I get distinctly uneasy about that. Because the 16 patients here that a doctor has seen and hasn't got a diagnosis for, and I'm not being critical, like I put people in EOU as well, but there are 16 people who have not been able to go home but haven't quite found a unit yet, right? That's a high risk group of patients. So you should think about, when you do your EOU round, think about every patient and think, right, what were the cognitive sort of biases here? Why did this patient end up here, not under Gen Med? Was it late at night? Was the Gen Med reg grumpy? Maybe the Gen Med reg went home sick. There's a lot of reasons why the patients ended up where they've ended up. And algorithms are okay. Like, algorithms are cool. Like, we talk about the PERC rule for chest pain and stuff. Yeah, use algorithms, man. They're not enough, because the PERC rule doesn't tell you, there's other things you won't get from PERC rule. The PERC rule doesn't tell you that uncle died of DVT, or the sisters get factor V Leiden, or, there's other things that we can flesh out in our assessment, but the algorithms are useful for at least as a kind of skeleton to hang your cognitive processes on, and you can also exit algorithms as well. Like, I love ignoring D-dimers, or just not order them and order on a CTPA, because you don't always have to follow the algorithm, like, depending on what your level of suspicion and experience is, bias is a totally different talk in itself, man. Like, there's a lot of bias in ED in what we see. So framing bias is, if I gave you a 50-year-old bloke and put him in a fast-track cubicle, clothed, and told you that he had left-sided chest pain, you would probably contextualise his illness in a different way from if he was in a resus cubicle, having been brought in by ambulance, attached to a cardiac monitor. Because you'll go, I think he's a bit sore on the left side, he's got his clothes on, he's probably strained at lifting something, he's a worker, he's got his work clothes on, I think it's... And you might downplay the patient's presentation because of their context, Destination is... geography is destiny sometimes in ED. If you're in the wrong context, people might downplay your symptoms, or vice versa. And also you'll get young guys that are 20 that are resus with chest pain and say, why is this 20-year-old resus with chest pain? This is bullshit, but you get a category 2 because you get chest pain, Confirmation bias is finding something to reaffirm your mistaken false logic. So, patient presents to ED, young patient, no previous history, has had a febrile illness of 24-48 hours, including prominent headache, vomiting, and some degree of photophobia. White cell count and CRP are normal, so I think the diagnosis is probably viral, or migraine, and so treatment gets migraine or viral treatment. That's confirmation bias. You rather than confront what the diagnosis is likely to be, like meningitis, for which the test is not FBE or CRP, it's lumbar puncture, you'll use the normal white cell and CRP to exit the algorithm, and so to not address, so you'll use it to your own, we're lazy, we want things to sort of confirm our prejudices, if you like. Search satisfaction is similar. It's, you find hazy mark on the chest and you think that the febrile illness is a pneumonia rather than a meningitis, depending on the context. And anchoring is just sort of sticking to your original diagnosis despite your evidence to the contrary. So I think this guy's definitely got pneumonia. Okay, so he's got normal chest X-ray, normal bloods, normal inflammatory state, whatever. But you have convinced yourself that that's the cause of his fever rather than osteomyelitis or some other problem or meningitis, and I like that last. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So being aware of the filter by which you view patients, is kind of relevant. I can't remember who said that. It was somebody famous. I think it was. Is it Anas Nin, the French author? I'll find out who it was. I've got it written down somewhere. That's a funny GP letter, but you can't see it very well. It hasn't come up very well. So the key is to probably be, in terms of strategies, to think broad. Don't close in too early. Always keep it open. Even if you get evidence to confirm or deny something, still keep asking the question out throughout the whole journey of the patient AED. Think of high-risk cases. Sense's law is one of Ainsley's rules. Ainsley's got a few rules actually, but one rule she's got is that constipation is a CT-based diagnosis. So the absence of intra-abdominal sepsis or catastrophe might allow you to make diagnosis of constipation. She's also got another one that says, there's another one that she talks about, which is, and it's Occam's razor, I think essentially is what she's talking about. If the patient has two problems, chest pain and headache, it's more likely that those two things are connected and that the unifying diagnosis is going to be something that incorporates both of them rather than they've got chest pain and a headache. Does that make sense? So this is an aortic dissection because you've got chest pain plus headache rather than, is this some non-specific chest pain? It's got a bit of headache as well, but I think it's probably just stress or tension. If you can tie the two things up together, it's probably a safer way to do it. I remember once handing over at the Anglers to Keith Joe, remember Keith? See what? And I was quite junior, I was like a resident at the time, one of my first jobs in Australia, and there was a guy who came in with renal colic, and I handed him over in the morning, and I said, oh, this guy's got renal colic, and I think he's probably a bit of an upper respiratory tract infection as well, because he's fighting a bit of attention overnight, and this kid saw his face, man, I was devastated, man, because you could see the disgust and the anger that I had falsely attributed gram-negative sepsis of the urinary tract to like an obstructed kidney that needed an immediate operation to something else. But I was kind of dumb. I didn't know that if you renal colic and a fever, it was a bit of a big deal, you know. Like, so I let it happen that way, and I never made a mistake since because he chewed me out about it. So yeah, those identifying the patients that if they've got two problems, tie them together. If you find yourself making a diagnosis of gastritis, costochondritis, constipation, think again. Also, if you find the patient, that's the other Ainsley's rule, is if the patient annoys you, you've got to work harder on them. So if the patient's like some IVDU that's asking for Xanax and is just been incontinent in the cubicle and is abused in nurses and stuff, the chances are they're probably a very objectionable person, but it still doesn't get to the crux of what they're here in emergency for. And so if you find yourself disliking someone, I think you've really got to work a lot harder in those cases. So many times I've seen it happen. Like, that is a classic trick. Like, Luigi does Eminem, he sees the patterns that come back to Eminem, and you know, there's frequently there'll be an IVDU who's abused people and whatever, and she's got epidural abscess. You know, she happens to be a prick as well, but she has pathology. But all that noise interferes with your type 1 thinking, and so you end up kind of dealing with them subconsciously as, oh, this person's a waste of time. Like, I'm just going to be happy that the blood's normal, saying, oh, I'm not going to go any further. We're just going to call it a day at that, rather than I'm going to go a little bit further and check this out. Do you reckon?
Yeah, no, in fact, one comes to mind, and I'd like to think I haven't made that many mistakes, but obviously we all make mistakes. It depends how big you classify your mistakes. And it was an IVDU as well as a poor historian. He was just annoying because he was a bit passive aggressive. So I disliked him, and I was just looking for an excuse to send him home. It was only my repeated exam that gave me a sense that his pain was real, and so I didn't send him home earlier. And then as it transpired, I finally relented and called the surgery, and he ended up having a contained perforation of the upper bowel. So sort of the duodenum, whatever it was. So it just highlights that. That always comes to mind when you've got that transference, because we all have it, a patient that's annoying for whatever reason, and occasionally that can sting you.
And I think just even being, when you walk into that situation, just being aware of the situation, you can't change that person's personality or your personality, like, but just be aware, oh, this is a bit of a high risk situation I'm going into here now. This patient, like, say, ambulance sometimes might flag query drug seeking, or the nurse at triage might say query drug seeking, or somewhere along the line, there's a sort of kind of Chinese whispers, if you like, and it sort of builds momentum, and you have to be the person to go in and say, right, I'm going to take all of that stuff, I'll take it on board, but I'm going to discount it for a moment just while I get through my own internal algorithm and use a few roadblocks and strategies to prevent me from making the same error.
So that's in the triage note. Why do you think thinking?
I was going to say, when I was trying to think about biases, that's probably the big one.
Nurses are great, man. ED nurses are great, I'm not going to criticise them, man, like, but sometimes they'll get it wrong, man, and it may be because somebody is an abusive arsehole,
or a bad historian,
you know, or a bad historian, or like, and you know, you think about our average patient, like, how often do you take the history in English at Sunshine?
Yeah.
So there's a whole other level of bias where you're doing a veterinary examination of a high-risk patient, trying to make a decision with absolutely no useful information whatsoever. So I think being aware of that is important, and yeah, just like sort of, it's cool. That's actually when you start getting into interesting parts of BD, when you can sort of break through the barrier of judgment and sort of reactivity into a more kind of mindful, meditative, kind of zen, like, you know, diagnostic machine, you know, like, I don't know if any of us have got there yet, but it's an ongoing process, you know, like, and disliking patients is common, man, you know, like, you can't like everyone. So use the strategies, and then ask us, like, we're around, and like, I think our job, predominantly, I think, is to review patients that junior staff have seen, and to provide advice, and to give a second set of eyes, and to point out other diagnoses that might need considered, you know? I think that's probably our core role, do you think? Like, in terms of...
One of the main things, particularly and it's really busy and you get stuck seeing someone, then it's probably almost pointless because you sort of can't get back to them because there's other things going on. So it's more efficient doing a true consultant role.
And frequently, look, the registrars are the workhorses of the hospital. They'll say 10, 15, 20 patients in a shift. I don't see that many patients on my own de novo, so I can see myself as being like a brain for hire or an extra set of eyes for hire, you know? Like, that's what a consultant should be providing, you know? Like, just, if I'm too distracted in doing stuff, then I can't come and listen to your patient and assess them and give a second opinion on them. And that's really important, man, you know? It's also a safety strategy that you've got a kind of backup plan, because you're not, most of you are probably going to discuss patients before you send them home anyway, so we might just say, oh, maybe we'll keep a hold on them, or maybe put them in EOU, or, you know what I mean, like, we're hedging our bets a little bit and say we're not quite so bombastic. I guess I'm trying to think of there's 2 or 3, just trying to quickly, cases of bias. One was, I got a handover a couple of months ago from one of the registrars, who's really good, man. And this registrar handed over his patient, and she started the handover with, this patient is a waste of space. Right? And this is a very mild-mannered and nice, well-meaning, liberal, like has worked in the developed world, done charitable works and stuff, and it was the end of a night shift, and I know there was other stuff going on in this registrar's life at the time. This patient's a waste of space. So that, when you get such a loaded, emotive handover, like, this person has pissed this person off, discount what this person has to say and go and see them yourself. And I went to see it, and it was like a 20-year-old girl of Somali origin whose face was like a melon, man. She was just bruising all over her face. Her clothing was ripped. Her mascara's all around her face. She looked like she'd had a bad night. And normal for Glasgow. And she had an obvious broken wrist. Like her wrist was deformed and swollen and painful. You pressed on it, she went, ah. So anyway, and I said, are you okay? What happened? And like, she'd been drunk. And I think the drunkenness had started off the whole pissed people coming to ED. I think she might have been cheeky to nurses. She was different colour from most of us. So, like, just the stars lined up for this girl, so she just got everything lined up. And so by the time I went and saw her, like 9 o'clock in the morning, she was in tears and kind of remorseful, and I'm drinking too much, you know, I don't have any social backup, and was a real soft story. I was kind of really shaken by it. It's like it's somebody's door, you know. And so she had a broken wrist, but interestingly, the registrar had cleared the cervical spine and brain in this girl, despite her being intoxicated, evidence of bruising and injury, and a distracting injury, because they'd hit it off at the wrong angle and disliked each other, and she'd sort of discounted the medical side of what the person's problems were. I'm sure she was pretty objectionable when the registrar saw the patient. I mean, I'm not a total bleeding heart. I'm sure there was some element of unpleasantness in her back, but there was fundamental errors of her judgment, which came from it being 5 a.m. She was going through some stuff at the time which I know of, or I was aware of. The patient was drunk, had been offensive, and just kind of, her guard was down, and she kind of disliked the patient and stopped thinking, you know? So by all means dislike patients, like, it's still cool to dislike patients, but just try not to let it factor in. The other one was handover from 2 others I can think of, was both in EOU. One was I came on, and ED was chocker busy. I was an afternoon shift in EOU, and one of the consultants was about to leave and was handing over and said, oh, that girl in EOU 5, she's a fucking dying swan. That was someone handover. That was a dying swan, she's got women flu. I was like, okay, so again like...
a dinosaur.
So, dying swan.
So, right away, red light was going off in my head, like, somebody's really pissed somebody off here. This is I better go in and see what's going on. And we go to see this woman, and she's got a headache, she's got a fever, she's been vomiting, she's got mental, she's got 1,000 white cells in CSF. But I think I'd been very busy, and maybe had been seen by a consultant and interrupted resusces, back calls, STEMIs, and he hadn't quite got round to them, but maybe he'd saw the bloods and stuff and went, probably nothing, and yada yada yada. And she'd meningitis, man. So I guess emotionally loaded handovers are always right, and we do it, like, with handover we'll make comments about patients sometimes inappropriate, because that's part of our dark humour and part of what we do. Like, it's not asking you to be like angelic in that sense, but in terms of your assessment, I think that's when you've really got to divorce all that noise. The other one was similar one to the previous one. Was I came on to an afternoon shift in EOU It was super busy. I think they did a paediatric arrest that day. Like, it was just nuts. The place was crazy. And whoever was in EOU just literally couldn't do an EOU order that day because they'd just been dragged into resus, intubating status epilepticus and resuscitating children, just had not got round EOU. But the consultant involved said, can you go and see the guy in bed 5? Oh, he's a fucking man flu, just please do something. So I go in there, there's a young guy in there, his dad's a GP, right? And I'm like, oh fuck. And so dad's a GP, and I'm like, how are you doing? I'm Martin, sorry, it's been really busy. I just want to start from scratch, blah, 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 blah. And this kid, man, had new onset fever, headache, vomiting, like the class A, 6,000 white cells in CSF. Like, but that guy had been distracted, pulled away. I'm not blaming him, but it was the way that people will phrase things sometimes. You always go in de novo. And I think he'll use a good place to learn about bias and, like cognitive errors. He'll use like a natural laboratory for the study of human error. Do you think? Like,
Yes.
like what something is presented as and what it actually is the big disconnect sometimes, man.
You get triaged into this straight away, and often it's
And multiple
Difficult,
handovers as
yeah.
well.
I know the med is always worried too when it's an patient.
Is that right? In what way?
Because they feel like it's taken that long to sell something, so something's there for
True, that's true.
My med is always worried about you.
No, it's true. I think you're spot on. That would be, if I was a med my cognitive strategy would be EOU referral, go through them like a ton of bricks. Like they have, lots of people have touched that person and not committed to a diagnosis, and everyone's a bit edgy. And also, like the EOU, direct to EOU thing, it's about framing bias as well. What was on with me that night when a woman came in and she had like ST changes and like crazy ECG. She came in straight from the waiting room. And if you saw her in resus, you'd have been, she can go to cath lab, but she's in EOU and you're sort of thinking, it's because it's a different context. It's not the ward, it's not resus, it's not monitored area, it's EOU, it's a strange purgatory-like state, Yeah. But I guess having said that, in that woman's case, her going into EOU, she got seen quite quickly and she was escalated appropriately, cardiology involved, they moved her out, blah blah blah. It was fine, like that in itself is not a bad thing, being in EOU. In fact, it's a strategy for us to try and see patients, but it will frame your assessment of them, potentially make cloud the water.
I think there's often a fear maybe at our level in the ED about time, and I know that's not our responsibility, but we're all conscious of the 4 hours that ticking over and you've got 10 minutes, and I think sometimes you almost feel uncomfortable putting someone in EOU and being like, oh, we're using up the bed and we haven't worked this out and maybe they should be in the ward and are they going to get forgotten here, and it's sort of all that time pressure that everyone's conscious of.
Well, there's anxiety everywhere, there's anxiety because everything is arbitrary. Like everything they do is completely arbitrary, and so if you have a controlling mindset, or if you're kind of into order and things happening exactly as they should, then ED is just not the place. It's not the place. You have to ditch all that at the door before the shift. Do you know what I mean? Like it's organised chaos on a grand level, and uncertainty and ambiguity, and diagnoses which are fluid. Really fluid. Like the surge registers. I think it's interesting when you talk to surge registers, because like what they want is an appendix needs to take a inflamed gallbladder with brains. They get a bit edgy when it's the undifferentiated stuff as well, because they're going like, oh, what else is going on? Could it be a medical thing? And you get that whole kind of, is there a medical cause for this condition? And everyone sort of gets a bit, do you know what I mean? Like passed back and forward between, because the surgeons know that they're not very good at dealing with gynae stuff and vice versa, So yeah, I guess being aware of all of that stuff, I think being thorough, knowing what your own triggers are, knowing which patients are a trigger situation, and knowing that you have access to an extra set of eyes, whether it's us or a registrar, I think there's always a safety net, So that would be my advice to you. But it's fascinating. I'll send you, if you want, I can get around to send out a talk from Cross Kerry, the guy that talks about this stuff. He's a really good talker, man, and he's got like a 45-minute talk on cognitive error, which is just gold, man. You can never listen to it too often. You should probably channel it before every shift, because you think about this stuff for a while, then you kind of dwindles away and you forget about it. Then you get burnt, or you're involved in an unusual case, and you go, oh shit, that was a classic cognitive error there. Somebody made the wrong diagnosis because of these different conflicting pieces of information, that I can see. And you can also frequently, once you become aware of this stuff, it's not to be critical of other people's management, like it's actually to be understanding of other people's mistakes, you know? Like, I'm sure, like, Luigi has to deal with Eminem. I mean, it's an atrocity exhibition of just people having all manner of badness happening to them and death and things that, you know, appalling outcomes, but there's actually a kind of humility, I think, that you can get from being involved in those cases, do you think? Like, in terms of it sharpens you, or...
Well, I know that I looked up once, because I like the topic of bias, and if you look it up on Wikipedia, like Martin's gone over a few, there are an unbelievable amount of biases. And I looked through them and I thought, there are actually ways that we all think. We effectively are a unique set of a bowl of biases. If you, because back to that sort of philosophical statement about who we are, what we see, that's what we are. So I don't think you can remove the bias from your constitution, but it's that awareness of them, and then maybe changing the ratio of the biases by having a meta sort of way of thinking about it is a way of reducing their impact on the patient.
Yeah, it's controlling rather than...
There are ways we think. Recency bias is going to come into it because, well, you remember that case. And then anchoring, because if I get a handout from someone you trust, you're going to believe what they say. So at the same time, you've got to go a bit open, take that information and see if it matches. A bit like one of the best things you can do if you get a mismatch between triage and what you get is reconcile that difference. But triage note says this, what do you say about that? And it's amazing what comes out of that. And then sometimes the truth lies actually between something between the two. And it's forever intriguing, and it is. If you're into that stuff, that's why this place's ED or just our work is amazing. It's got all that crap in it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Cool. So I'll get. I'll try and send you this time a link to his talk on cognitive errors. But this is like metacognition. I didn't know what that meant, but apparently it refers to thinking about thinking. That's what metacognition means. So if you think about your thought process and all this bullshit new age stuff, you know, like mindfulness. I don't know what mindfulness means. Self-reflection, like whatever. I think. Reflective versus reflexive, these are my axioms. Reflective versus reflexive. Objective versus subjective. You know? Always strive for being as objective as possible, you know, in very high risk situations, you know. And thinking about the case rather than just directly responding to, oh, it's chest pain, it's got to be ischemic. Stop, you know. Reflect on chest pain as an entity, you know. Cool. And yes, that's the other one. Assume nothing, believe no one, and give oxygen. That's just somebody told me that years ago. But it's actually now they're saying you shouldn't give oxygen. So that's been debunked. That's been debunked for the 21st century. But yeah, Ainsley's the patients I don't like have to work much harder on. I think that's like, you know, we haven't walked in the shoes of a lot of people there. Like, so many people come in this department, man. Like their lives are. They may as well be from a different planet from us in terms of their social setup, their behaviours, their values. Like it's kind of, I guess it's like being a priest almost, being a medicine. You've given this kind of confidential access to people and their lives and their conditions. And I think you have to be kind of respectful of that and of them, regardless of whether you approve of their lifestyle choices or you want to be them. Like that's another thing, but be mindful of the privilege and the sanctity of the relationship between the doctor and the patient, you know, like they tell you, you can ask patients anything, you know, and you've got to build, and a lot of times patients will respond to frank questioning, you know, like a lot of times we'll skirt around things, but if you actually target it and go and say, I've got to ask you about this, they'll tell you, man, because they've kind of got this, tell the doctor what's going on with them, so I think being thorough in the history is important, man. Beautiful, okay.